Okay, let's see if I can show you how to stamp. So I've got my silicone mat down. You don't have to have one of these, but it helps protect your work surface. And basically any of the polish and stuff that you get on it just comes right off. I still like to use paper towels on mine because some of the stamping plates have a backing on them, and I've ruined a couple by the polish like oozing under the edge. So I like to just lay it on a paper towel. If the stamping plate has a blue film over it, you have to take that off. That's just a protective film, and that's a common mistake that a lot of people make is they don't take that off. So we've got our stamping plate. The next thing you need is a stamper. This type here is the most common, this hard type stamper. If you have flat nail beds, this should work fine for you, but I actually have curved nails, and I didn't realize that until I was failing at stamping with this. I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong, and so if you look, it doesn't give enough to touch the sides of my nails. So if you have a flat nail where this will touch all of your nail, you can use this type, but you can't see through it, so it's a little hard to place your images. If you have curved nails like I do, you're going to want some form of a clear jelly squishy stamper where you can see that I can push my nail down into it and all of it will touch the image. And there's lots of different versions of this. This is one I'm currently using, but there's also this bigger one that's really nice. You can get the ones with the smaller end, so if you need to do a smaller image or smaller nails, it has the... Was it stuck on there? It might be stuck on there. You're supposed to be able to... Oh, it looks like I spilled something on it. It probably got sealed with acetone. But there is a smaller nail head in there, stamping head. So you can use any of those. I used this one for a long time. You can see right down inside of it. And you can get replaceable heads for these. There's also the marshmallow type, which are super, super squishy, but I haven't had any luck with those. I also haven't had any luck with this purple one here. Sometimes people will tell you that you need to prime your stamper. I've never done that, not with any single one of my stampers. If you really truly believe the problem is that the stamper's not picking up the image and it's not something else you're doing, you can wash the heads in soapy water, or you can clean them with plain acetone. During the nail stamping process, you don't want to use regular nail polish remover because it has oil in it. So I just always keep a bottle of just straight acetone in my little dispenser there. Always keep that on hand. That makes it easy. You are going to need a scraper of some sort. The scraper that comes with this pink one is a little tiny plastic scraper, and once you get better at scraping, it'll probably be okay, but early on, you're not going to be able to get it to work. Lots of people use gift cards. These worked pretty good for me, but then I got these slightly thicker cards, and this is my go-to scraping card now. So we need a scraper. This isn't a must-have. You can also use a paper, not a paper clip, a clothespin. But this is a cotton ball grabber so that you can clean your plate without touching and messing up your nails. So I always have one of those, and then I have a stockpile of cotton balls laying nearby. You're going to need a top coat. Lots of people swear that you can just use any old quick dry top coat as long as you, quote, float it. Didn't know what floating meant either. It means you use an enormous amount of the top coat so that it forms a barrier between the brush and your nail, and that your brush never touches your nail. Even when you do that, some stamping will still smear. And there's nothing worse than spending 2 hours doing an intricate stamping design and then to have your top coat smear it. The way to avoid that 100% all the time, every time, is to use a water-based, quick dry top coat. This one is from Clear Jelly Stamper. It works amazing. I'm sure the other ones that are water-based work really well too. This is the only one I've ever used, and I've tried on purpose to make it smear, and I can't make it smear. So I usually use this, and then go back over it with this, because this one tends to peel up after a couple days. So I put this on kind of as a sealer. Now when it comes to stamping polish, experienced stampers will tell you, oh, you can just use any old polish. If you're just starting out and you're struggling, get a stamping polish. It makes a difference. You can get these little bitty bottles from Born Pretty. They're not very expensive. You start out with just white and black. It will be so much easier for you to learn how to stamp if you have a stamping polish, and your results will be better. Most polish is too sheer to stamp correctly. If you have polish that is opaque in one layer, it typically will work as a stamping polish, but it still may not be as opaque as a true stamping polish. The favorites throughout everybody who stamps are the Sally Hansen Insta-Dries. They're opaque in one layer usually, and they dry really quickly. The other thing is the environment that you're working in needs to be free of drafts, no fans, anything like that, because you have to work quickly before the polish dries on the plate. Otherwise you won't be able to pick it up. And that was sabotaging me early on too. I was sitting underneath a vent and I didn't realize it was blowing down, and the polish was drying before I ever had a chance to pick it up. The other thing I keep nearby is some Scotch tape to help if I get excess images on the stamp head. Like if I just wanted this Christmas tree and I accidentally picked up some of this, you can take the tape and lift the excess polish off. The other thing I use is a lint roller to clean my stamper head in between stamping. You just roll it on there and it takes all the excess off. You can use acetone, but that's kind of overkill, and some people say it eventually breaks down the stamper head. So I just use that and it works great. Alright, I tried to move stuff over so I could do this without bumping the camera. The next thing that I had a problem with was how I was picking the image up. When I had this one, I was rolling and I couldn't get it. Pressing down, I couldn't get it. You're using very little pressure when you do this. When they say press down with this one, if you're going to use this one, you're really just tapping it. There's not much else to it. Or if you're rolling, it's just the lightest little bit of roll. The same with the clear jelly stampers. You can press down on those, or you can roll them. Whichever one works best for you to get the image. And sometimes the plates need a different motion. Sometimes the plates aren't etched right and they just won't pick up right. But sometimes the way it's etched, it may need, if it's really intricate, it might need that super squishy stamper. But you're never using a ton of pressure. No matter what stamper you're using, you're always just barely touching or barely rolling. The next thing was, how much pressure do I use with the scraper, and what angle do I hold it at? I've seen people do almost completely flat. I tend to go kind of at an angle, but you're not digging and scraping. It's also important that your plate is level, because if it bows and flexes, it's not going to scrape even. That's another thing that can sabotage you. But what direction you scrape, some people say scrape the opposite direction that you're going to roll. Well, I don't really put that much thought into it. I try to, like if I wanted this tree, I wouldn't scrape all the excess polish over there, because then that means there's more cleanup for me. I would either scrape away from the tree, or I would scrape up this way, or possibly down this way. But I definitely wouldn't go towards the other images that I don't want to pick up. Just saves you a little bit of time. If it's a big image, like I have one that's a whole square that you use for gradients, I really do have to lay the scraper at a shallow angle and just barely drag it across. Otherwise, I end up with a streak right in the middle of the image I'm trying to pick up. So I'm just going to try with one of the little snowmen up here. If I can get my polish open. The Born Pretty polish is a little smelly. Not much you can do about it. Some people cover the whole image. Some people cover part of the image. I was not sure how much polish to use. You kind of get a feel for it after a while. You don't need to flood it, but you do need to have enough in there to fill in all of the image. So you can see down through there if I wanted to do that. Can you see that? You have a little more time transferring than you do scraping and picking up. Like, you can't let this dry on the plate or you're basically done. And I already put acetone on this cute cotton ball, so it's ready to go. So let's try. That was my actual stamping polish. Let's try this Crayola one, just for comparison. I put a lot less polish on this time, but it still should be enough. And I'm just going to roll. Still looks really good. Now, to me, you can't really tell the difference in those. That Sally Hansen Quick Dry, I actually got a better pickup. See, the hat's filled in better. The Sally Hansen, oh, and I got both the feet. The Sally Hansen is equally as opaque as the white stamping polish, so that's definitely one that you could use in place of a stamping polish. Alright, I'm going to clean that off again. In between stamps, I'm just rolling my stamper across my lint roller to remove the excess polish from it. This time I'm going to try another polish that's not meant to be a stamping polish. This polish is not clear or not opaque in one layer. Most whites aren't. That's kind of hard to come by to get a nice even white. But I just want to show you a difference in how it looks. So again, on this image, I'm just like filling in half. You can already see on the plate that it looks different. I'm going to scrape. I'm going to pick up. And it picks up okay. But see how much lighter it is? And I'm just gently pressing this down on my nail with hardly any pressure at all. Now, do you see the difference? So some polishes may pick up well, but you're not going to get the same coverage. So if you really want to recreate a look that you saw someone else do, you probably need a stamping polish or a opaque in one coat type of polish. What else is there to talk about? Maybe a full nail image? We could try that with this one down here. Like those I put in the center, so I didn't really show you how I can press that around my nail curve. So let's just do this bigger one. I just went about halfway. You'll kind of get a feel for how much polish you have and how much you have to scrape off. Some people scrape 2 or 3 times. I don't have good luck with that. My polish dries out too fast when I do that. Again, just barely rolling. So this time, hopefully you can kind of see that. I want this to wrap all the way to the edge of the nail, so I'm going to press a little bit more. Can you see how my nail sort of sinks in? And now it's all the way to the edges of my nail. You can't do that if you have curved nails with this. It'll just never work. A lot of people also use latex barrier around their nails, and I used to do that too. It takes forever for it to dry. And then I ended up with everything, like literally everything sticks to it. So I stopped doing that because most stamping polishes will clean up with a little bit of Scotch tape. Now, you don't want to do this while your nail is still wet, but it'll pick up most of it. Then you can do the rest with a brush. Now let's see if I can make one of these smear on purpose. So normally to float, you would get a big glob of the top coat on there, and then just kind of glide it on and never touch to the brush to the nail. Let's see if I can make this one smear. Can you see that one, you can kind of see a little bit where the white smeared down to the bottom. Because I didn't re-dip it. It still had polish on it, but it wasn't enough. Now, I'll show you with this one here. On my index finger, I'm going to wipe this off so there's like next to nothing on it. And it doesn't smear. So you barely have to use any, and it still won't smear. Let's try that again with this one. If I wipe all the polish off of this one and come in here, streak, 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 streak. Again, you might be able to get away with, oh, and look, it's on here too. You might be able to get away with it if you float, but you use so much more top coat when you float, and it doesn't always work. I purposely smeared that one. Lots of people use KB Shimmer and other quick dry top coats and are able to float them successfully. This will never betray you. So basically, to be successful, you have to have the right stamper for your nails, whether it's a squishy, a clear jelly, or one of the firm ones. You have to have a well-etched plate that's etched nice and deep so that the image fully picks up. You have to have a good polish to pick up, preferably a stamping polish. You have to move quickly so that the polish isn't drying on the plate or on the stamper. You have to be in a room where there's nothing blowing down on your nails or crosswinds drying out your plate before you're ready. Have a good scraper, one that works for you. I like this one because it's just a little bit more flexible. But gift cards work. They just have a little more give to them. You just have to get used to that little bit of give. Sometimes if the plate isn't level and you scrape with this, well then the gift card bows also. And this one doesn't tend to do that. And it's got a little fatter of an edge on it. Make sure you're using acetone. You have your lint roller, your Scotch tape. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, there's other stuff that you can do, reverse stamping or making decals, but I don't do a lot of that. I sometimes do decals with my mat, where you put down a clear coat and then you stamp onto the clear coat and then you paint it in from the back, peel the whole thing up and apply that to your nail. But it's time consuming and it takes a lot of cleanup. So I just pretty much stick to my regular stamping. Hopefully that helps you. Those were all the issues that I was having when I first started. And once I started piecing together that A, this was never going to work for me, and B, that I needed to be in a place with no drafts, it kind of all fell together, and then I was off and running. And now I know what to look for, kind of, and how to troubleshoot if I'm having problems. I never use this stamper, so I literally don't. But see, it just takes, I didn't quite get the head, but just a tiny little press is all it takes for this one. But this guy and I just aren't good friends because I never ever use it. Let me try one more time. Maybe I'll roll. That one did a little bit better. But there's no way that would ever... On my thumbnail, I might get it on there. And you can with this one, you can also roll it on instead of pressing it on. But it's a little harder to place. And like now my thumbs are crooked, but he's really, really crooked. So I find this one to be challenging to use. So maybe don't start with that one until you kind of get it figured out. And then you can come back to using this one. It's nice to pick up, little tiny images, but it's just hard to work with. All right, I guess I'm done. Hopefully that helps.